The medical bay of the orbital station was usually quiet, a place where order and routine ruled. But tonight, alarms blared, red lights flickering across the cold metal walls. The sound cut through the air like a knife. Everyone on duty froze for a moment, hearts skipping. A small transport shuttle had just docked, carrying something, or someone, that none of them could have expected. A group of medics rushed forward, pushing a stretcher through the sliding doors. On it lay a man. He was battered from head to toe, his body marked with strange patterns that glowed faintly under the bay lights. The colors shifted slightly, pulsing like the beat of a heart. No one spoke at first. Their hands shook as they tried to steady the stretcher. Dr. Alice was the first to reach him. She was tall, with sharp eyes that always noticed the smallest detail. She knelt beside the stretcher, her fingers brushing the man's skin. The patterns were alive in a way she had never seen before. "I've never seen injuries like this," she whispered, almost to herself. The man's skin was torn in some places, yet the wounds did not bleed as they should. Some cuts were already closing as she watched, a faint light shining from the edges. The man groaned, a sound that made the medics flinch. His voice was weak, broken, but full of a strange urgency. "Ronan," he muttered. The name seemed familiar in a way that made Alice pause, but no one answered. They didn't know what to say. It was the first word he had spoken, and it sounded like a memory trapped in his mind. Nurse Clara stepped forward cautiously. She had worked with hundreds of patients over the years, but this was something different. She crouched near Alice, looking at the glowing marks. "Doctor, look at this," she said, pointing to the strange symbols running across his arms and chest. They twisted like vines, forming intricate designs. "They're moving. They're alive." Alice leaned closer, careful not to touch the glowing patterns too much. She had heard rumors of genetic modifications and advanced tech used in warfare on distant colonies, but nothing explained this. It didn't match any human injury she knew. "He's not just hurt," Alice said, her voice tense. "Something inside him is still active. Something is keeping him alive even after this." The man's eyes flickered open briefly, showing a pale green color that seemed unnatural under the station lights. He looked around with confusion, his pupils shifting too quickly for Alice to focus. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry and only a weak whisper emerged. "Need help?" Clara nodded, trying to calm him. "We're here. You're safe now. Just stay still, okay?" The man tried to lift his hand, but it fell back limply. His strength was gone, yet the medic sensed a faint energy beneath his skin, something powerful and strange. His body trembled, not with weakness, but with a kind of tension, as if it wanted to move but couldn't. Alice could feel it, a vibration through the stretcher, almost like a heartbeat that didn't belong to a normal human. They moved him to the main medical bed. Machines hummed as sensors scanned his body, trying to make sense of the glowing patterns. The lights on the monitors blinked in confusion. His vital signs were unusual. His pulse was steady but too strong, his brainwaves erratic but far beyond normal human limits. Every reading contradicted the others. Alice swallowed hard. "We need to find out what he is," she said. "And fast." She glanced at Clara, who nodded, her face pale but determined. They had seen emergencies before, but this was something entirely new. The man coughed suddenly, a harsh, wet sound, and his eyes opened wider. They came, destroyed. His words were fragmented, memories spilling out in pieces. "Fire, sky, lost, all." Alice's heart quickened. She grabbed a nearby tablet and started typing rapidly, trying to record everything he said. "Clara, write this down. We need every word." Clara moved closer, kneeling beside Alice. She whispered, "Doctor, what language is he speaking? I don't recognize it." Alice shook her head. "It's not a language. It's fragments, memories trapped in words. I think he's trying to tell us what happened to him." The man's body twitched suddenly, jerking as if he was resisting some unseen force. The glowing marks on his arms brightened for a moment, pulsing in rhythm with his movements. Alice took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She had dealt with critical patients, but never one who seemed otherworldly. He looked at her, his green eyes filled with fear, confusion, and something else, something that made her chest tighten. It was hope. Or maybe it was warning. "They will come," he said softly, almost a whisper, before his eyes fluttered closed again. Alice and Clara exchanged glances. They had to stabilize him first, but she knew instinctively that this man was no ordinary patient. There was something ancient in him, something that had survived against impossible odds. And somehow he had made it to their station. They worked quickly, administering fluids, monitoring his heart and scanning the patterns across his skin. The symbols reacted to the sensors, glowing brighter when touched and shrinking when ignored. Clara's voice trembled slightly as she muttered, "It's like he's alive inside his own skin." Alice nodded without speaking. She didn't need to. She understood. This was not just about injuries or survival. It was about something bigger, something that might change what humanity knew about life in the universe. Hours passed. The man remained unconscious but stable, his body healing at a speed that baffled the medics. The patterns on his skin seemed to move like they were alive, tracing paths that no human hand could draw. Alice studied them, fascinated and worried at the same time. "We need to know his name, who he is, what he's from," she said quietly. Then, as if answering her thoughts, the man whispered again, barely audible, "Ronan?" Alice's eyes widened. She repeated the name softly, testing it. "Ronan, is that your name?" He didn't respond, only shivered under the sheets. But the sound of the name seemed to awaken something inside him. A faint pulse ran along the patterns on his skin, and Alice felt a sudden warmth from the stretcher. It was small, but it was there, a sign of life, resilience, and something unexplainable. She turned to Clara. "We'll figure this out. Somehow we'll understand him. I don't know what he is, but I know this: he's survived things no one else could survive. And maybe, just maybe, he's here for a reason." Clara nodded, her hand resting lightly on the edge of the medical bed. "Then we protect him. No matter what." The alarms quieted, leaving only the hum of the machines and the faint glow of the strange marks. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, but inside the medical bay, something unusual had arrived, something that carried a story no one had yet heard. And in that story, Alice and Clara knew, there was hope. Hope for survival, hope for discovery, and hope for a future that was bigger than anyone could imagine. The night stretched on, silent except for the whispers of the man's faint breathing and the soft pulse of the glowing symbols. Alice watched him closely, knowing that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. Ronan, she thought, had survived the impossible. And somehow he had come to them, for reasons they did not yet understand. The morning light in the medical bay was faint, filtered through the reinforced windows of the station. Outside, stars shimmered coldly in the endless black of space, but inside, a strange tension filled the air. Ronan lay on the medical bed, unconscious for most of the night, yet his body seemed alive in ways no one could explain. Nurse Clara leaned over him, her eyes scanning every inch of his skin. The glow of the strange symbols made the dim bay seem almost otherworldly. She touched the edge of a wound near his shoulder, and to her surprise, it began closing even as she watched. The cut had been deep, jagged, yet now the edges drew together with a faint shimmer of light. "This isn't normal," she whispered, stepping back. "It's healing, too fast, too perfect." Dr. Alice knelt beside her, frowning. "I've seen accelerated healing before," she said cautiously, "but this is something else. His bones look normal, but if you tap here," she gently knocked on his forearm and it rang like metal, solid and strong. "Stronger than steel," she muttered. She had tested it several times and every time the result was the same. Clara shook her head. "This isn't human," she said softly, almost afraid to speak the words. "Nothing human works like this. Look at him." She pointed to his eyes. Even in sleep they seemed to move, tracking invisible things in the room. When he finally blinked open, they were sharp, alert, almost too intelligent for his disheveled appearance. Ronan's gaze fell on her, piercing and strange, and his body moved with an elegance that made Clara freeze. He sat up slowly, but every movement was precise, controlled, as if each muscle knew exactly what to do. His posture was perfect, and the way he turned his head to look at Alice was careful, measured. "He's different," Clara breathed. Alice nodded, unable to hide the awe in her voice. "I don't know what he is, but he's not just a man. He's something more. Something we don't understand yet." Then they noticed the faint glow on his wrists. Symbols, tiny and intricate, formed patterns that shifted as he moved. They were not random, they seemed almost alive. Clara leaned closer, brushing her finger lightly across the glowing lines. The symbols pulsed in response as if acknowledging her touch. She recoiled slightly, startled. They react. "They're like he's alive inside his own skin," she said, her voice trembling. Ronan's lips moved, forming words slowly. "Don't touch that," he whispered, his voice low but firm. His green eyes were sharp now, alert, filled with something Clara could not name. There was fear, yes, but also caution, as if he had lived too long with people who would not understand him. Alice stepped forward. Clara, keep your distance. Let him speak. Maybe he can tell us what these symbols are. She glanced at the monitors, checking his vital signs again. Everything was unusual. His heart rate was steady but too strong. His brainwaves were complex, as if multiple thought patterns ran at once. Clara frowned. It's like his body is operating on a level we can't measure, she muttered. Ronan moved his fingers slightly, tracing the glowing symbols on his wrist. Light traveled along the lines, spreading across the skin in intricate patterns. The movement was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. Clara felt a strange warmth in her chest, a connection she couldn't explain. She shook it off quickly, reminding herself this was a patient, an unknown patient who might be dangerous if provoked. Alice watched him carefully. He's trying to tell us something, she said. Even if we can't understand the words, the body, the symbols, their communication. Or maybe a warning. Ronan's eyes darted around the room, scanning every corner, every shadow. His sharp gaze missed nothing. Clara noticed how he flinched slightly when she reached for a scanner nearby. Wait, don't, he said softly. Not yet. He was patient, but the caution in his voice made her pause. Alice sighed. We'll do this slowly. Let him guide us. She took a small device and hovered it near his arm, careful not to touch the glowing patterns. The machine hummed, trying to record the strange symbols. As the device activated, the glow brightened briefly, then faded again. It was almost as if he was testing their intentions. Clara leaned closer, whispering, Do you think it's a defense mechanism? Like his body protects itself? Alice nodded. Could be. Or it could be a memory. Something built into him long before we existed. Ronan's voice came again, calm but firm. I survived. They tried destroy. His words were broken, fragmented, but they carried meaning. Clara felt a chill run down her spine. There was history here, history that was alive in him. He wasn't just injured, he was carrying a past, a memory, and perhaps a warning. He lifted a hand slowly, showing his palm to them. The symbols shifted, forming new patterns that twisted and turned like a living maze. Clara gasped. It's changing, she said. It's alive. Alice reached out carefully, trying to understand. Ronan, can you control it? She asked softly. He nodded slightly, the movement graceful, deliberate. His eyes met hers, holding a strange intensity that made her heart skip. She realized then that this man, whatever he was more than just a survivor. He was a record of something ancient, something lost, something that had endured against impossible odds. Hours passed. The medics watched as his body continued to heal itself, the cuts closing, the bruises fading, and the faint glow of the symbols pulsing gently. Clara tried to take notes, documenting everything she saw, but no words seemed enough. It was like watching a miracle unfold, but one that carried danger and mystery. Ronan moved again, this time sitting fully upright. His body was tense but controlled, muscles flowing with fluid precision. He looked around the room, eyes flicking to every monitor, every corner, every person. Clara noticed how he avoided the shadows, as if he had learned to fear them long ago. You've been through things, Alice said quietly. Things we can't imagine. He looked at her then, and for a moment, something almost human appeared in his eyes. Fear, sadness, but also determination. They, he whispered, voice cracking slightly. Lost home, all. His hands trembled for a second, the glowing patterns on his skin pulsing brighter. Clara instinctively took a step back, unsure if it was safe to be so close. Alice moved forward, placing a hand gently on the edge of the bed. It's okay, Ronan. We want to help. We're not going to hurt you. She spoke slowly, carefully, feeling the weight of the words in the quiet room. Ronan's head tilted slightly, studying her, reading her intentions. Then he relaxed minutely, the glow on his wrists softening. Clara let out a quiet breath she didn't realize she was holding. Alice nodded at Clara. See? He's responding. Slowly we'll understand him. Slowly we'll find out who, or what he really is. Clara's gaze returned to the glowing patterns. I just never thought I'd see anything like this in my life. Healing like that, strength like that, moving like that. It's unreal. Alice smiled faintly, though worry remained in her eyes. Maybe he's here to show us that we're not alone in the universe. That survival isn't just about us, it's about something bigger. Something we don't fully understand yet. Ronan shifted slightly, watching them both as if he understood her words. The faint glow in his wrists continued to pulse gently, a rhythm of life, memory, and something that might be hope. Outside the bay, stars continued to shine, cold and distant. But inside, the presence of Ronan, the survivor, filled the room with something new, something alive, something that defied explanation. It was a story waiting to be told, a mystery waiting to be understood, and a life that had survived impossible odds. Alice and Clara stayed near him, vigilant, awed, and just a little afraid. But deep down they both knew one thing: whatever Ronan was, he had survived for a reason. And that reason was only beginning to reveal itself. For now they watched. They waited. And the symbols on his skin pulsed like a heartbeat, a reminder that this man was more than just flesh and bone. He was a survivor of something extraordinary, and the story of his wounds, the strange, unfamiliar, glowing marks, was only the beginning. The medical bay was quiet now, except for the soft hum of machines and the faint pulse of the glowing symbols on Ronan's skin. Dr. Alice stood by the control panel, her fingers hovering over the scanner. She took a deep breath. They had done everything they could manually, examined his body, watched the healing, observed the strange patterns, but nothing explained him. Not the glowing marks, not the strength, not the intelligence in his eyes. "We need the scanner," she said quietly. Clara nodded beside her, a mixture of fear and excitement in her expression. "It's the only thing that can tell us what he really is," she replied. The scanner hummed as it powered up, a soft vibration running through the floor. The machine was the station's most advanced piece of equipment, capable of analyzing DNA, cybernetic implants, energy signatures, and even previously unknown biological structures. It had never failed, but even Alice felt a strange tension in her chest as she placed the device near Ronan's arm. Ronan stirred slightly, opening his eyes. He watched the scanner with caution, the green in his eyes catching the light. He lifted his hands slowly, showing the glowing patterns. "Not harm," he said softly, his voice low but firm. Alice nodded. "We're not going to hurt you. This will help us understand," she said gently. The scanner began its work, sensors sweeping over his skin, scanning the glowing marks, mapping his bones, tissues, and energy fields. The machines beeped, lights flickered, and the screen filled with streams of data. Alice and Clara watched closely, hearts pounding. Seconds passed, then minutes. The numbers on the screen were strange, unlike anything Alice had ever seen. Clara leaned in closer, trying to make sense of the figures. "Doctor, look at this," she whispered. "His DNA, it doesn't match any human pattern we have on file. Not even close." Alice frowned, eyes widening. "Impossible," she muttered, her voice barely audible. She scanned the readouts again. Every strand, every cell, every genetic marker told the same story. Ronan was not just unusual, he was extraordinary. The scanner continued, moving across his chest and arms. Suddenly, a soft alarm chimed. The machine highlighted a section of the data, and words flashed on the screen. "Match found. Unknown civilization, extinct." Alice's fingers froze on the control panel. She stared at the screen, then back at Ronan. "Unknown civilization?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "That can't be right. There's nothing in human history, nothing in our records. No race like this has ever existed." Clara's eyes widened. "Are you saying he's from another civilization? One that disappeared?" Alice nodded slowly. "Not another planet. Not another colony. Something older. Something advanced. Something that shouldn't exist." She glanced at Ronan, who watched them carefully, the glow of his wrist symbols pulsing brighter as if responding to the tension in the room. The machine continued scanning and more data appeared. His injuries, the scanner showed, weren't just survivable, they were designed to survive. Every bone, every tissue, every part of him was built for endurance. His body had been engineered, enhanced in ways humans couldn't comprehend. Cuts healed instantly, muscles resisted damage, bones could not be broken easily, and even the faint glowing marks on his skin seemed to be part of a protective system. Alice shook her head, trying to process it all. This isn't natural. Not for humans. Not for anything alive we've ever seen." She turned to Clara. "He's more than just a survivor. His body, his injuries, they're a blueprint for survival. Someone, or something, made him to endure the impossible." Clara swallowed hard. "But why? Why would anyone, or anything, do this?" Her voice trembled. "And if he's from a lost civilization, what happened to them?" Alice's jaw tightened. "That's what we have to find out. But first we need to make sure he's safe. And we need to be careful. This is bigger than us. This is history. And history like this can be dangerous." Ronan shifted slightly, raising his head. "They destroyed," he whispered. The words were faint, but they carried weight. "All Gone? His eyes glowed faintly, the patterns on his wrists pulsing faster, as if trying to explain something words could not. Alice leaned closer, voice soft but urgent. Ronan, who destroyed your people? Who did this to you? He shook his head slowly. Don't know, all just fire, sky, running? His words were broken, memories spilling like shards of light. Clara took a step closer, trying to understand, but Alice raised a hand to stop her. We have to be careful. We don't know what triggers him. Not yet. The scanner continued its work, and a 3D hologram appeared above it. A full-body scan of Ronan, glowing in shades of green and gold, showed the intricate design of his bones, muscles, and the flowing symbols etched into his skin. Clara gasped. It's beautiful, like art, but also, like a weapon. Alice nodded grimly. It's both. Survival and defense built into one body. Whoever made him, they weren't just thinking about living, they were thinking about fighting, resisting, enduring. Ronan watched them silently, the faint glow of his skin dimming slightly. He raised a hand, fingers tracing the air, and the patterns shifted, forming shapes that almost seemed like maps or symbols or memories. Alice stared in awe. He's showing us something, she whispered. Something from his past. Clara shook her head in disbelief. From a civilization that doesn't exist anymore. That's impossible. And yet here he is. Alive. Breathing. Everything about him proves they existed. Alice took a deep breath, looking at Ronan. We need to be careful. Knowledge like this, power like this, it can change everything. And not everyone will want it to be known. She glanced at the scanners again. We have to understand him. We have to protect him. And we have to find out what happened to his people. Ronan's eyes met hers, green and unyielding. There was fear, yes, but also something deeper, determination. Survival. Alice felt it, a force inside him that no one could break. The patterns on his wrists pulsed once more, brighter than before, as if agreeing with her thoughts. The scanner finished its work and the machines powered down. Alice and Clara exchanged a look, a mixture of awe and fear. They had just glimpsed something beyond their understanding. Something ancient. Something powerful. Ronan shifted, finally speaking more clearly. Last, home, destroyed, alone. His voice was quiet, but every word carried the weight of centuries. Clara shivered, feeling the gravity of his existence. Alice nodded, placing a hand gently near the edge of the bed. We'll help you, she said softly. We'll figure this out. But you need to trust us. We don't know what your civilization was, but we know one thing. You survived when no one else could. That's why you're here. Ronan's gaze softened slightly, the symbols on his skin pulsing with a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The faint glow seemed to fill the room with warmth, a light in the dark void of space outside. Clara whispered almost to herself. He survived everything, because he was built to. Because he was meant to survive. Alice nodded. And maybe, because he's here for a reason. We just have to find out what that reason is. Outside the medical bay, stars sparkled coldly, indifferent to the mysteries of life inside the station. But inside, a new story had begun. One that involved a lost civilization, a survivor unlike any other, and two humans who were about to witness something extraordinary. The scanner had done its work. The proof was there. Ronan was no ordinary human. He was a link to something lost, something powerful, something that could teach them more than they had ever imagined. And as the symbols on his skin pulsed softly in the dim light, Alice knew one thing with certainty. This was only the beginning. For Ronan, the story of his survival had just begun to be understood. And for Alice and Clara, the story of him, and his lost civilization, was about to change everything they thought they knew about life, survival, and the universe itself. Ronan lay back on the medical bed, his breathing steady, the glowing symbols on his skin dim but still pulsing gently. He had regained enough strength to move slowly, but he remained cautious. Dr. Alice and Nurse Clara sat nearby, waiting. They didn't know what he would say, or if he could even speak, but they were ready to listen. After a long pause, Ronan lifted his head slightly, his green eyes focusing on Alice. The world, destroyed, by others, he said slowly, each word deliberate, as if pulling it from the deepest corners of memory. Alice leaned closer, holding her breath. Tell us, Ronan. We want to understand. He looked away briefly, as if seeing something far beyond the room. Then he continued, voice quiet, almost a whisper, fire, sky, falling, people, running, home. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard of tragedies in human history, but this sounded bigger, unimaginable. Cities swallowed by fire, technology erased, a civilization hunted to extinction. These were not stories humans had ever faced. And yet here was Ronan, alive, the last spark of a world lost. Alice swallowed hard, trying to keep her emotions in check. Your people? You mean everyone was gone? She asked softly. Ronan's hand moved slightly, tracing the glowing patterns on his arm. Gone? All except me, survive, alone? His voice cracked slightly. Clara noticed how tense his body had become, the way he clutched at the edge of the bed as if holding on to memories too heavy to bear. Clara took a careful step closer. But you survived, she said gently. You're here. You're alive. That means hope still exists. Ronan's eyes flickered toward her. Hope, he repeated, the word strange on his tongue. Then he lowered his head, the glow on his wrists pulsing faintly. Small hope, my people last. Alice nodded. She understood. He was more than a survivor. He carried the knowledge, the memory, the very essence of a civilization that had once reached the stars. He was a living record and perhaps even a guide for the future. Clara sat down carefully, unsure if she should speak or remain silent. Humans, we fight, we survive, we don't always win, she said softly. But sometimes we rise from nothing. Maybe, you and us, we can rise together. Ronan looked at her, the green in his eyes sharp and intense. For a moment he didn't move. Then he spoke, his voice steady but quiet. They, hunters, strong, destroy, all, technology, everything, gone, cities, fallen. Alice took a deep breath, trying to piece it together. So your civilization, advanced, powerful, was wiped out. But you survived. Somehow you survived everything. Yes, he whispered. Built, strong, for survival, hidden, away, run, hide, wait. His hands moved slowly, tracing the glowing symbols. Each symbol seemed to tell a story, a fragment of memory encoded into his skin, living and moving like a language of its own. Clara's eyes widened. You're carrying their history, inside you, she said softly. Not just you, your body, your memories, your knowledge. Ronan nodded slightly, the faint glow of his symbols pulsing brighter. Yes, last, link, survive, teach, remember? Alice's mind raced. If Ronan carried the legacy of a lost civilization, that meant the knowledge, technology, and culture of his people could live on. Humanity, and anyone else in the galaxy, could learn from it. But it also meant danger. If others discovered what he carried, they might want to take it or destroy it just as they had done to his world. Ronan, Alice said softly, we need to protect you. Your people, your civilization. Everything you carry, it's too important to lose. Not just for us but for everyone. You're a spark that survived the darkness. He blinked slowly, the green in his eyes reflecting the soft lights of the medical bay. Spark, is carry, survive, last. Clara moved closer. And maybe, we can help you, she said. Help you remember, help you heal, help you carry on. We're not them. We're not destroyers. Ronan's lips twitched, almost a smile, but it faded quickly. Trust, hard, learn, humans, maybe. His voice was cautious. He had survived betrayal, destruction, and loss. Trust was not easy. Alice reached out slowly, placing a hand near his arm, careful not to touch the glowing patterns directly. We'll earn your trust, she said. Step by step. We want to help, not harm. You've survived so much. You don't have to do it alone anymore. For a long moment, Ronan was silent, only the faint pulse of his symbols filling the air. Then he finally spoke again, quieter this time. Teach, remember, survive. Clara's eyes glistened. We'll remember, and we'll help you survive. Alice nodded. We have to. This is bigger than just us. Bigger than one person. Bigger than one station. You're a living history, Ronan. And history deserves to be preserved. He shifted slightly, the faint glow on his wrists growing warmer. Preserve, my people, memory, last. The three of them sat in silence for a while, letting the words and the quiet fill the room. Outside, the stars continued to shine, distant and cold. But inside, something warm had begun. The fragile warmth of understanding, trust, and the recognition that survival was not just about strength, but about memory, hope, and connection. Clara whispered, even if your civilization is gone, Ronan, your story can live. Through you, others can know, can learn, can rise. Ronan's green eyes met hers, and for the first time, a small spark of something like relief appeared in his gaze. The glow on his wrists pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat syncing with the words spoken around him. Rise, yes, hope, carry. Alice leaned back, exhausted but determined. We'll protect you, Ronan. Your past, your people, your knowledge, we'll make sure none of it is lost. You survived when all seemed gone. Now we survive with you. He looked up at her, eyes steady and bright. Together, survive, remember, carry. 4 hours, the three sat in the quiet medical bay, listening to fragments of a world lost, a civilization erased by fire, sky, and hunters beyond reckoning. And yet Ronan remained. Alive, strong, determined. Alice and Clara realized then what humans often overlooked. Survival was not just about fighting. It was about memory, knowledge, and hope. Ronan embodied all of these, and in him, they saw proof that even the greatest losses could leave a spark behind. A spark capable of lighting a new path. The night stretched on, the hum of machines mixing with the soft pulse of the glowing symbols. Ronan spoke little more, but every word, every movement carried the weight of history. Clara whispered softly, "You're not alone anymore. Your story, your people, we will remember." He lifted a hand slowly and the symbols pulsed gently in response. Remember, teach, hope, carry. Alice smiled faintly, though her eyes remained serious. Yes, Ronan. We will remember. And together we will rise. Outside, the stars continued their silent vigil. But inside the medical bay, the last spark of a civilization burned bright, carried by a survivor whose story had just begun to unfold. And for the first time, Ronan allowed himself a small thought he had not dared for centuries. Maybe survival was not only about enduring, but about passing on hope to others, even when all seemed lost. And in that moment Alice and Clara knew that the universe had just given them something extraordinary. A living memory, a survivor, and a chance to learn from the past to shape a better future. The station was quiet at first, the hum of machines filling the empty corridors. Alice and Clara were busy checking the monitors, making sure everything was functioning properly after the long night with Ronan. The air was tense but calm. Outside, stars glimmered in the darkness of space, distant and beautiful, but they carried no warning of the danger that was about to arrive. Suddenly, alarms blared through the station. Red lights flashed, casting long shadows across the walls. A warning signal echoed in the medical bay, sharp and urgent. Alice's heart skipped a beat. "What now?" she muttered, running to the control panel. Clara followed closely, her face pale. The station's main systems were failing. Life support, communications, and power fluctuations all at once. Ronan stirred on his medical bed. His green eyes opened slowly, and the glowing symbols on his skin brightened in response to the alarms. He sat upright, moving with a fluid precision that seemed almost too perfect for someone who had been injured days ago. "Problem? Systems fail," he said quietly, scanning the room. His eyes moved from monitor to monitor, taking in every detail, calculating, analyzing. Alice looked at him, surprised. "Can you help, Ronan? Can you fix this?" He nodded, slowly, deliberately. "Yes, help, must save all." His voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of experience and knowledge. He rose from the bed, standing steadily despite the remnants of injuries still visible on his body. Every step was exact, controlled, his movements almost like a dance, graceful, efficient, and deadly precise. Clara hesitated. "Are you sure?" she asked. "It's dangerous. The station could fail completely." Ronan's eyes met hers. Danger, not stop, must survive, adapt. The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. Survival required action, courage, and intelligence. Alice felt a shiver run down her spine. This man, this survivor of a lost civilization, carried knowledge far beyond anything they could imagine. And now they had to rely on him. He moved to the nearest control panel. His fingers brushed over the screens, and the glowing symbols on his skin pulsed in response, almost like a second language. The monitors flickered, showing error codes and warnings, but Ronan did not hesitate. His hands moved with perfect coordination, pressing sequences and commands that Alice and Clara had never learned. Slowly the systems began to stabilize. Alice leaned closer. "What are you doing? How do you know what to press?" Ronan didn't answer with words. Instead, he pointed to a panel she hadn't even noticed, and the system responded immediately. Sparks flew from a nearby conduit, and Clara jumped back instinctively, but Ronan was calm. "Trust, adapt, combine, human, tech, alien," he whispered. His words were fragmented, but Alice understood. He was blending knowledge from his lost civilization with the station's human technology, merging the two to create a solution. The lights flickered, then steadied. Life support stabilized. Power levels returned to normal. Communications hummed again and monitors displayed green, safe readings. Alice and Clara exchanged a look, disbelief written on their faces. He saved us, Clara whispered. He actually saved the station. Ronan stepped back, hands lowering slowly, the glow of the symbols on his skin dimming as if he had used his energy to fix the problem. Systems, stable, survive, he said quietly. All safe. Alice moved closer, her heart racing. Ronan, you did it. You really did it. I've never seen anyone, any human or alien, do what you just did. He looked at her and then at Clara. Survive, must, adapt, learn, all, he said, his voice calm but full of certainty. Change, use, live. Clara nodded slowly, realizing the meaning. We survive, because we adapt, she repeated softly. Not just humans, anyone, any species that lives, must adapt. Ronan's green eyes glimmered with understanding. Yes, adapt, grow, rise, he said. The glow of his symbols pulsed gently, a soft light in the dim room. It was almost like a heartbeat of hope, a rhythm of life that had endured despite destruction, fire, and loss. Alice turned to the large windows of the medical bay. Outside, the stars shone, countless points of light against the blackness of space. She thought of the civilizations Ronan had described, cities burned, people hunted, knowledge erased. And yet here he was, alive, unbroken, carrying the last spark of a lost people. Clara walked to the window beside her, breathing deeply. Even if his world is gone, he's here. That's proof that hope can survive. Ronan stood quietly, watching the two women. For the first time in centuries he felt a connection beyond survival. These humans, simple, fragile, yet determined, were willing to understand, willing to protect, willing to learn. And for the first time he realized that survival was not only about enduring loss but about sharing strength, knowledge, and hope with others. Alice turned back to him. Ronan, your people may be gone, but you've shown us that even the smallest spark can survive the darkness. You've taught us more than any history book ever could. He inclined his head slightly. Teach, remember, rise, humans, learn, he said softly. It was almost a lesson, simple and clear. Adaptation, knowledge, and courage were universal truths, something even humanity could grasp. Clara smiled faintly. We'll remember, and we'll grow from this. You've given us a gift, Ronan, the gift of hope and proof that survival isn't just about strength, it's about intelligence, courage, and heart. Ronan's gaze lingered on the stars outside, green eyes reflecting the distant light. Survive, adapt, live, teach, hope, he whispered, each word deliberate, each carrying centuries of wisdom. Alice took a deep breath, realizing how much they had learned from him. He was not just a survivor. He was a guide, a teacher, a living example of resilience. Humanity, she realized, could rise higher if they understood what he had endured, what he had survived, and what he could teach them. The station quieted again, the alarms silenced, systems stable. But inside something had shifted. The presence of Ronan, the last survivor of a lost civilization, had changed the energy of the place. It was no longer just a station floating in space. It was a beacon of hope, a place where humans and alien knowledge could meet, combine, and grow. Clara stepped closer to Ronan. You're not alone anymore, she said softly. We'll protect you. We'll learn from you. We'll survive together. He looked at her and Alice, and for the first time, his expression softened. The glowing patterns on his skin pulsed gently, almost like a sigh of relief. Together, survive, teach, hope, carry, forward, he said. His voice was low but full of certainty. Alice smiled faintly. Yes, Ronan. Forward. We survive, we learn, we rise. Together. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent and eternal. But inside the station, 3 lives had been changed forever. The knowledge of a lost civilization, the resilience of one man, and the courage of humans willing to trust and learn had combined. The future, uncertain and vast, seemed a little brighter. Ronan walked slowly to the observation window, looking out at the endless stars. We survive, because we adapt, he whispered again, a truth as simple as it was powerful. Alice and Clara stood beside him, silent, watching. For the first time in their lives they understood fully. Survival was not only about strength or technology, but about courage, learning, hope, and the ability to rise even after everything is lost. The glow of Ronan's symbols dimmed softly, a gentle reminder that the past had survived, and that humanity, and anyone willing to learn, could rise higher because of it. And as the 3 of them looked out at the stars, a shared understanding filled the room. Even a lost civilization could teach the living to grow, to adapt, and to survive. The night stretched on, quiet but alive with promise. Outside, the galaxy was vast and unknowable. Inside, life pulsed with the certainty of hope. Ronan had survived fire, sky, and destruction. And now, with Alice and Clara beside him, humanity had learned an important lesson. The future belonged to those who adapted, learned, and never gave up. Together, they faced the stars, ready for whatever challenges might come. And in that moment, they knew something extraordinary. Even the ashes of a lost civilization could rise again, carried forward by courage, knowledge, and the simple, unyielding will to survive.